Get in the know. Non-stop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com. Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing Company.
They got to be focused and detailed, and that comes from all 11 guys that are out on that field each play. So, it's a challenge for us, and another challenge for us against a good defense who does some things that we haven't really faced yet this year. So, will be a good opportunity for us to continue to get better as a football team.
I love that shirt. I don't know what that was. Is that an official NFL shirt he was wearing? It said undrafted. Adam Thielen wearing an undrafted
He's got his own
shirt.
line, like of clothes.
Okay.
I wonder if it's
cool.
that.
Who does it now? Jefferson's got his own line. Thielen's got a line.
Are those guys
lines.
allowed to wear their
Publicists.
clothing lines at press conferences, NFL-sanctioned press conferences, without getting fined? Or do they take the fine because it's worth the promotion?
That's a really... Ooh.
Brett Favre used to wear his, Nike hat, his, dirty, grimy,
That thing, yeah.
non-NFL sanctioned
you know what?
Nike golf hat.
I think, now that you bring it up, I think the rule was, at least at that time, that post-game, you had to wear sanctioned stuff.
Yes.
Or a
So,
suit, or whatever.
After a game, yeah, right. But you couldn't wear your own hat. But I think for the weekday press conferences, you can. Because KOC wears the Jefferson stuff sometimes, like his Wednesday presser. So I don't think you get fined for that.
Huh. That's what we're going to do today. Just a deep dive into the things that Vikings players
But don't pull
wear
your
here.
socks up
It'd be
too
great.
high because you'll be reported.
By the way, I know it's a little late for you to get these for the holiday, but we do have our own Score North Purple Daily sanctioned merch, like a Mr. Fourth Quarter Comeback, hooded sweatshirt, Victory Monday, Just One Before I Die, hooded sweatshirts and T-shirts, other Purple Daily and Score North swag, Hawk Season. You can find them all at scorenorth.com/shop, scorenorth.com/shop. My guess is if you buy now, you'll get them sometime in early January, so check them out there. This is Purple Daily, daily Vikings entertainment, where we just want the Vikings to win a dang Super Bowl before we die, and they are flirting. They've already clinched a division. They are sitting with one of the 2 or 3 best records in the NFL right now. This show is presented by our friends at TCL, one of the world's best-selling consumer electronics brands. They have a new lineup of award-winning TVs delivering the most entertainment with stunning resolution, all at an affordable cost. Enjoy more of the things you love with TCL. And it's also presented by our friends at Surly Brewing Company, the official craft beer of Purple Daily.
Speaking
and
of
fourth
things-
quarter comebacks.
Speaking of things that I love, speaking of things, thankful. Christmas is a time to be thankful, right? Thankful for family, thankful for friends, and guess what? Thankful for your favorite beer. And if that's not Surly Brewing, what are you doing? I mean, you got the Logic Bomb, you got the Furious. Before I Die speaks to the entire reason why this show is here right now. So if you have not checked it out, if you're not thankful because you don't know, make sure that as January 1st and a new year approaches, Surly Brewing becomes part of your draft choices as well. You'll be happy it did.
Boys, it's time to pick the game here. We're going to get to the actual picks in just a moment, but a few important questions as we go into the third to last regular season game, a home game, the last home game of the season, regular season anyways, for the Vikings against the New York Football Giants, who are fighting for their playoff lives. They're currently sitting in the 6th seed in the National Football Conference. Just a game up on the Commanders, and then I believe they're a game and a half up on the Seahawks and the Lions. So the Giants can go a long way toward clinching a wild card spot if they come into Minnesota and they win this game. If they lose, then they start to open the door for Seahawks to jump in, Lions to jump in, maybe the Packers if they beat Miami. So a lot on the line for the Giants in this game. And for the Vikings, they're just trying to stay ahead of the San Francisco 49ers to give themselves the number 2 seed and maybe play an additional home playoff game. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how big is this game?
Okay, this might surprise you. I'm going to give this puppy a 9, and here's why. The division is clinched. I understand that, but please follow along as I tell you why I've given this game such a high grade on the importance scale. It's this one. How do you bounce back? How do you bounce back? We talked about this on, I believe it was M&J yesterday extensively. But the last time that the Vikings had a spirited comeback, 17 points from down in Buffalo. Oh my God. Let's talk about that game all the next week. You then showed up at home against the Cowboys team that is good, but certainly not great. And you laid a 40-3 egg. You were awful. You clearly were still stuck in Buffalo, although your bodies were in US Bank Stadium. How do you bounce back here? I think that is the question. And I think that gives this game a huge degree of importance because as we addressed yesterday, this is like the playoffs now. Like you're probably going to fall behind. Playoff games are weird. Playoff games are draining. But just because you win one playoff game does not mean that you say, okay, let's exhale and let's just enjoy the rest of the next week. And then if we win, we win. No, you have to win. So I think this game takes on a huge degree of importance based on what we see from this team as far as the ability to put what was a phenomenal comeback behind them and now take on a team that's going to have a level of desperation that's going to be, I think, a good challenge.
It's a 7 for me. It's a 7. So few reasons. Obviously, they have to stay ahead of San Francisco if they want the 2 seed. The good news is because that NFC South is so putrid, the Vikings can't finish lower than 3. Right? It is mathematically locked. They will be the 3 at no worse than the 3 seed in the NFC conference, which is great. So they'll get the home playoff game. The South is so bad that team's going to be probably like a 9-win team. So you got the 3 seed already locked up. Now it's trying to make sure you have the 2nd seed. So if you win the wild card weekend game, you can get a home playoff game again in the divisional round. That's guaranteed. So I still think it's a 7. If they lose this game, it's just going to drop them down potentially 1 spot. But it's a playoff atmosphere. You might see this Giants team in 3 weeks in the wild card weekend. So you can even get a little playoff preview of how does this team look if we do see them on wild card weekend. But for me, it's a 7 out of 10. It's not a 9 or a 10 for me.
Yeah. What's funny is if you beat them, it actually makes it more likely that you face them again in a few weeks because they'll maybe be bounced down to the 7th seed at some point. I'm kind of in between you guys. It's an 8 for me. I think all of these games until you get to week 18 and there's nothing to play for potentially, for all the reasons that we've kind of mentioned, you need to be stacking wins. It's not good enough to just. This is what the Vikings have been guilty of late in seasons, January specifically, pretty much in my lifetime.
Yep.
You get a big win. And then it's okay, now it's time to go get the next big win, and they can't stack it. They lose in the conference championship game to the Eagles because they're not ready, or the Niners in the divisional round or something.
Yes.
So I would start to treat these games like playoff games. I know you're trying to balance resting guys. Like Garrett Bradbury probably plays if it's a playoff game, but so I'm not going to go as far as like putting guys in harm's way if they're not 100%. So I'm trying to balance resting guys that need it, but the guys that are playing, I am trying to get the 2 seed. I'm trying to stack, like Judd said, a win on top of an emotional win and see what I can do there. Funny enough, I was digging around for some rewind episodes during the holiday stretch that we're going to present to the audience on Purple Daily and Mackie and Judd, and I was going down a 2015 Vikings rabbit hole where I was like, oh, I should find the vent line after the Blair Walsh miss. And then it occurred to me after looking for it for about 10 minutes that is the only game. You didn't
remember?
That's the only game. I remembered after 10 minutes. The only time that we haven't done Vikings vent line that I can recall after a game in the last 11 or 12 years. And you and I, Judd, have been doing the show together on the radio. And I did it with Mike Morris for a while. And then we had kind of a mix, but was after the Blair Walsh miss against Seattle because we had a Gopher women's basketball game contractually obligated to run on the radio station, and it was kind of before we were doing YouTube and stuff.
Yeah.
But the last 3 games of the regular season, so the Vikings were 8-5 after a couple weeks in December. They had lost a couple games. They lost that Thursday night game against the Cardinals where they were making a comeback and Bridgewater got sacked. I think it was into Cardinals territory. But it was a great Thursday night game. They played the same 3 teams in their last 3 games as they will face this year in a different order, but they played the Bears, Giants, Packers, just like they're going to play in their last 3 games this year. So super weird coincidence. They throttled the Bears 38-17. That was a home game. They throttled the Giants 49-17. And then they went into Green Bay and they beat the Packers 20-13. It was like Mike Zimmer's arrival. Hey, finishing the season strong, 11 wins, and beat the Packers in Green Bay. And that momentum carried them into that home game in which I think they were underdogs against the Seahawks. And they, let's face it, they won that game. And then Blair Walsh effed it up. So I think winning those last 3 games the way that they did gave them this feeling of, hell yeah, we can beat this team that went to back-to-back Super Bowls. We can, yes, let's do it. And then their kicker blew it for them. But I think there's a lot of value in looking really good against the Giants and looking really good against the Packers. So it's an 8 for me. Is anyone playing or coaching for their jobs this week?
So I'm going to put a different spin on this question this week, because I don't believe, like, it's not like last week where if the defense plays poorly, which they did not against the Colts, that Donatel is going to lose his play calling or should. But I do believe that there is a very interesting competition that is going on here. And it's this. I believe that Duke Shelley continues to play for a full-time starting job. Cam Dantzler, I think, is listed as questionable or doubtful. So the only player who's out is Bradbury. So yes, thanks, Dex. So Dantzler is questionable. He definitely continues to have problems with the ankle. But all of that being said, Duke Shelley has been impressive, and he was impressive again as the highest graded defensive player for the Vikings from PFF last week. And I feel like if he continues to stack these performances, it's going to be really hard to justify putting him on the bench for Dantzler. And I don't want to say when Dantzler was playing uninjured that he was great, but they liked him, and he definitely has a future. But I do think as we see this play out, if Duke Shelley has another strong game, at some point in time, you're just going to have to say, you know what, Cam, you're banged up. Yeah. We appreciate you. Stay prepared to play, because, guys do like you did get hurt. All of that being said, the Duke of Shelley is the guy. So I think Duke Shelley continues to play for a full-time starting job, and he has made it very interesting from a guy who, full disclosure, I had never heard of in my life until the Vikings picked him up.
Yeah. Anyone else, Dex?
No, I don't think so. I would like to see, instead of this person playing for their job, because he's done actually a phenomenal job all season, but last week was rough, just how Matt Daniels and the special teams bounced back after just a debacle last week, especially on the punting side. I know I'm the biggest Greg Joseph supporter. That's not probably a family member of his, but last week their special teams was horrible. So how does Matt Daniels also bounce back, get that group kind of situated in the right spots? And I would like to see him kind of have a bounce back week after a really bad week last week.
I think on Ed Ingram, I feel like that would have happened by now. I think we're sort of, he's just going to be the starting right guard until the season's over at this point. What about Ed Donatel? It's calmed down a little bit just because they came back, they won the game. The defense itself was actually certainly wasn't perfect, but it was much, much better. Yards per play were way down.
I got questions there. I love a good conspiracy theory, and here's my question, and this is not going to be discussed, and it would take some digging to find out. I do wonder off of last week if the necessary changes were made behind the scenes,
but he doesn't want to embarrass anyone, doesn't want to,
and there's no reason to.
Yeah.
Like if you're KOC, are you really going to come out and say, I hired this guy because I thought he was good, but this old codger don't know a thing. So
Ed was calling plays though, wasn't he? I mean, there was plenty of shots on the sideline where he was.
Yeah, as far as we know. But what I'm saying is that doesn't mean that Mike Pettin didn't play a bit bigger role during the week. It doesn't mean that O'Connell didn't play a role. I mean, keep in mind the Kevin O'Connell that we see is not really him necessarily as a competitor. Like there's layers to him that he keeps quiet. And I'm not saying that's bad. It's great. But I mean, this guy's competitive as hell. So my guess is Kevin O'Connell knows exactly what he doesn't like as an offensive coach. Who better to then say, here's what we need to do. So I just think that let's just say the glitch might have been fixed behind the scenes a bit. I'm curious how it continues. But I refuse to believe that Ed just sort of found God and changed things by himself. I think it was probably a collaboration of people saying, here, when you go, Phil, from an average of like 16% blitzes to 40, that seems to me like somebody else got in the kitchen a little bit and probably helped out. And
Yeah.
again, I'm not criticizing it. I'm just saying my conspiracy theory is I think there was probably a lot more behind the scenes that just flat out was not discussed.
Yeah. No, you could be right. And KOC is never going to get up there and say, all right, well, I'm going to get really specific with you guys. So
Exactly.
Mike Pettin took a much more hands-on role in preparing things behind the scenes. And he called about half the plays. And we just didn't want to say anything in the moment because we don't want to embarrass Ed. There's no reason to like hang Ed out to dry. I know fans would love that. Yeah, get his ass,
Right.
But you're so close to the end of the year. I also think KOC is very keenly aware of locker room and just chemistry dynamics. You won the division. You got 11 wins. You don't want to just
Right.
uproot something unless it's very, very toxic. If you can kind of fix it internally, and then maybe you plan on saying goodbye to Ed in a month and a half from now, you can do it pretty quietly without saying, we're going to fire his ass before Christmas.
Which would be fun. Don't get me wrong. Ho, ho, ho. Here's a pink slip. But to your point, that's an interesting point because O'Connell's made it abundantly clear that he talks to Kirk a ton, which he should. He's made it abundantly clear that he basically told JJ, hey, you want to come in with ideas? Let's do it. So are you telling me that when inevitably, let's say Patrick Peterson was like, hey, Kevin, hey, coach, what's going on with us defensively? That O'Connell's like, I don't do that.
Yeah.
I don't, Patrick, keep those thoughts to yourself. I'm willing to bet that he said, okay, yeah, let's talk. So again, I think that there was probably a lot more collaboration that has gone into the defensive fixes than the Vikings discussed. And it doesn't do them when you're this good right now. It doesn't do you a lot of good to air things out. Like, what's the incentive? Just keep the momentum rolling.
Yep, exactly. And he already told everyone in the locker room that he would ride with this group until they don't let them play any more effing games. You can't say that and then not ride with someone that's in the car, even if that person it maybe has a minimized role. So, and then one more question before we get to the picks here. What worries you most about the Giants as an opponent?
I guess what worries me most is basically their mentality because they're desperate. And I don't look, they definitely aren't as good as their start, but they're not a bad team. And I think that the one thing is for the first time in a long time, they're probably, it feels like pretty well coached. So I guess what worries me is the Vikings, again, coming off this huge emotional 33-point comeback, going against a team that is going to play with absolute desperation. This is not a bunch of, this is not a last place team that's got no hope and they're going to be like, screw it. If you went from the Giants to the Colts, it'd be intriguing because I feel like the Colts will to win is, as we saw in the second half, long gone. But yeah, it's the scrappiness of the Giants that concerns me and I think is going to provide an interesting test as well.
For me, it's probably Saquon. He's having a bounce back season here, and when running backs have feasted on the Vikings defense before, he's already over 1,000 yards. He's got 9 touchdowns, so they're probably going to feed him a lot. Danny Dimes doesn't really throw the ball a ton. He actually is very good at being very conservative, doesn't throw many picks, so they're going to probably rely on Saquon a lot, and it's always easy to say, just stop the run. But then when it bleeds and Saquon Barkley's going all up and down the A gap and punishing you to death and controlling the clock, it makes life a lot harder on your defense. So I would say probably Saquon Barkley and to Judd's point too. Yeah, the desperation and them just being a much better coach team for the first time when it feels like years.
Yeah, on the coaching front, I'll echo the coaching thing. So Brian Daboll, what an interesting resume he has. So his first NFL job as a 25-year-old was with Bill Belichick, 2000, 2001, all the way through 2006. So he was mostly the wide receivers coach on the Dynasty Patriots early in Tom Brady's career. Bill Belichick rising to prominence. And then I believe he may have followed Eric Mangini to the Jets, I think. And then his career kind of he went Jets couple years, Browns when they were a train wreck, 1 year with the Dolphins as an offensive coordinator, 1 year with the Romeo Crennel. He rode the Belichick coaching tree, the Romeo Crennel Chiefs for a 2-14 season as the offensive coordinator. And so his career in his 20s, he was part of this legendary coaching staff and this dynasty team. And then things kind of derail for him with a couple failed OC stints. Then he goes back to the Patriots at age 38 in 2013, latches on again, I think, for more Super Bowl titles as a tight ends coach. Then he goes to Alabama to be the offensive coordinator in 2017 under Nick Saban. Then the Buffalo Bills run for 4 years. So the last 10 years getting back on track with under Belichick, Saban, Buffalo Bills the last 4 years, and now the work he's doing with the Giants. This dude, he's been through it. He's got a bunch of great mentors, and I think he's a great coach. So I think Kevin O'Connell is a great coach too. But I think the thing that worries me is just the Brian Daboll factor. What sort of tricks does he have up his sleeve? Also, you can't just blitz Daniel Jones like you did Matt Ryan, or it's going to probably come back to bite you. Daniel Jones is one of the better quarterbacks at avoiding blitz pressure in the NFL this year. He has also the lowest interception rate of any quarterback. So I don't know that you can rely on Daniel Jones to be the one that shipwrecks the game for you. You might just have to be patient. He can run. He's got over 500 yards rushing, so you might have to you might not be able to blitz 40% of your snaps and have it work out for you. So that's another thing they'll have to look at. We'll pick the game here in just a moment. A shout out to our friends over at Finch Home Solutions for helping idiots like us with things around the home.
Don't put it like that. Don't put it like that, because you know what? DIY should stop at electrical things in your house. It's not because you're a moron. It's because you don't know what you're doing and you don't want to burn your house down, right? Here's the key thing. Merry Christmas. Ho, ho, ho. It takes only one call to Finch Home Solutions to get any electrical issues in your home solved. So, like, let's say that you are going to get, for Christmas, you and the gal, a hot tub. Well, there's electrical installation that goes on with that. And guess what? Finch can do that. Flickering lights. You got some lights, they're not working. What's going on? That's actually a red flag right there. And again, don't try and fix it, because Finch can. That's the key thing here. Don't wait until something goes wrong. Finch is offering a free home safety inspection to all of our listeners as well. Be sure to tell them that you heard about Finch on Score North, because there are special deals for you Score Northers out there. 612-357-2604 or finchhomesolutions.com. Book the work today and take anything off your plate. finchhomesolutions.com.
And Dex, this is a great weekend to pour a cocktail and jump on Underdog Fantasy and have some fun the next couple days.
Absolutely. What I love about Underdog is they'll set lines early. So you know what? I locked in a line already. I already locked in over 0.5 touchdowns, I should say, for Saquon Barkley and Dalvin Cook. And both these guys find the end zone. You can lock in these picks right now at Underdog Fantasy. You can also join with promo code SCORE, SKOR. They'll match your first deposit up to $100. Also, you got fantasy drafts that are happening for the playoffs coming up in Underdog Fantasy. So go check it out. Great pick'em options, great drafts, mixed sport entries, everything you can need at Underdog Fantasy. Go download the Underdog Fantasy app.
And a shout out to our friends over at Federated Mutual Insurance Company. They've been around for over 100 years, helping businesses maximize their level of success. They're all about risk management, all about helping you navigate the waters of business, whether they be choppy or smooth. It's great to have an experienced guiding hand. Over 100 years of experience and reference points Federated brings to the table. Federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours. All right, gentlemen, the Vikings are 4-point favorites in many sports books. I have seen 4.5. 53% of the bets are on the Vikings, but 67% of the money is on the Giants, those big swashbuckling New York Sharks looking to put a bunch of money on the G-men. According to Action Network, here's the first sentence of their preview. These are the goofiest, luckiest teams in the NFL this season. So good luck trying to figure this one out. It might end up a playoff preview as well. A Vikings win sets this up as a 2-7 matchup, while a loss boosts the Giants and pushes this toward the 3-6 matchup. So either way, this could be a playoff preview. Both teams have metrics far short of what the win-loss records would indicate, but you already know that. These are flawed teams that keep finding a way to win late. The Giants can't pass protect, but the Vikings aren't getting much pressure. Minnesota is vulnerable defensively against explosive pass plays, but the Giants aren't hurting teams with explosive pass plays. The Vikings offense can generate explosive pass plays, but might not get the time against a good G-men pass rush. Anything could happen here, but the most likely outcome is a close, goofy game.
Great. That's great. That's well put.
That's a pretty spot on write-up. So with that, Judd, who wins and by how many points. Vikings are 4-point favorites in this.
Okay, the bad news is the Vikings do not cover the spread.
Whoa,
But the good news is that they do win because it's going to be a close, goofy game, which, by the way, could be used to describe a ton of National Football League action. Close and goofy and entertaining at the end. And this certainly will qualify. Vikings 24, Giants 21.
Okay.
So they don't cover, but they do win.
I believe even write that down on Wednesday. It was still half the sports books. Most of the sports books led at like 3.5, and now the lines actually moved up to 4 here. So the lines have moved even a half point more towards the Vikings. I'm with Judd though. I still think that this is probably a 4-point game. I would love to see the Vikings go in and convincingly blow out a team, and I think I have said that about 90% of our Purple Picks episodes going into a game. I think the Vikings win this game, but it's 24-20. It's 24-20. It's exactly 4. I don't think the Vikings can win by 5 or more points. 24-20 is my final.
Okay. You know, you could make the case. This sets up pretty well for the Vikings here if they're able to actually like compartmentalize that Colts game. But here's an interesting nugget. Teams after facing the Colts this season are 10-2-1 against the spread in their next game. I don't know why. Maybe the Colts are just that type of opponent that makes you feel good about yourself going into the next week. So I'm going to say, I think this is, I've said this like 5 times. I think this is the game where the Vikings create some separation. I think they take an early lead. I think they compartmentalize the Colts comeback. I think they fix some of the things that happened in the first half. And I'm going to say the Vikings, maybe the Giants flirt with a backdoor cover, but something like 27 or 28-20. So I will, against my better judgment, I will take the Vikings to win and cover the 4. So there you go, boys. Ho, ho, ho. We will be with you all after this game concludes, this goofy, wacky game on Vikings Vent Line on the Purple Daily YouTube channel. So hang out with us there and I don't know, pour a cocktail and maybe sneak away from your family for a couple hours while you either lament a Buzzkill Vikings loss or celebrate their 12th win.
Or join us.
The whole family.
Stick us on the big screen TCL and say, Mom, Dad, your siblings, everyone gather around. Shut off the Yule log and watch us instead.
I've already got out of one family gathering because of this, so I'm excited. Actually, I'm actually very, very thrilled about that. And that's not sarcastic. I'm excited. It's very Zolgadian of me. I know you're very proud of me for this decision. Yes,
we got you guys covered. Christmas Eve edition of Vikings Vent Line tomorrow. Thanks for hanging out with us here. See ya. Merry Christmas.